And that's another thing like that we knew going in. We knew that they was going to be a cocky team, which they have every right to be. They was the #1 offense in the entire years. We knew they couldn't block us. We knew that our front four was going to dominate them. So they did us a favor. They played right into our hands. We wasn't going to be that cocky team like, hey, we're going to play them in cover one. We're going to shut them down. Our best guys matched up on their best guys. We was going to make it be a team collective win on defense, and that's what we did, man. So at the end of the day, they shouldn't even talk about not having their offensive tackles when they didn't even help them. They put them on islands by themselves with the best pass rushers in the game. So that's at their own fault.
That's Buccaneers linebacker Devin White on FS1's Undisputed, answering a question from Shannon Sharp about whether White was surprised, and the Buccaneers were surprised by the way the Chiefs blocked or didn't block for Patrick Mahomes. 5 guys in the protection scheme 92% of the time. White, very blunt. White's one of my favorite defensive players. I think he may be one of my favorite talkers either side of the ball, because he says things. He says things, and it's, I don't know, can anyone really be offended by that? Are the Chiefs going to look at that and say, well, there's bulletin board material for when we meet him again? No, it's the truth. They chose to not help the backup tackles. They chose to not keep guys in. They chose to say to Patrick Mahomes, we know you got a bad toe. Go ahead and run around on it for 500 yards from the course of the Super Bowl. And Buccaneers are the ones that are throwing a trophy from boat to boat because of it.
You know, the one thing that I think we all learned watching these playoffs, remember at Washington, the Bucs started, was in COVID protocol, and so he missed that game. And then after that, every single game on defense, who was the best Buccaneer defensive player on the field? Now, we could very easily argue, and I probably would take that argument, that against Green Bay, that Shaq Barrett was the best Buccaneer defensive player on the field. But overall, you know, in their last 4 games, their best defensive player on the field, in my opinion, was Devin White. And think about this, Mike. Let me tell you a very quick story. Year and a half ago, I'm at Buccaneers training camp. This is year before Brady, so you don't know how good they're going to be. But anyway, there's optimism, blah, blah, blah. And I see Devin White. He's walking off the field. He's a rookie. I had not asked to talk to him. I was talking to somebody else, and I looked over, and Devin White was walking away. And I looked over, and Mike, he had the green dot on the back of his helmet. And I said to myself, hey, wait a second. He's 21 years old. And I understand he's the 5th pick in the draft, first guy taken, everything like that. So I tell one of the PR guys, hey, can I get a couple minutes with Devin White? And I talked to him, and I said, you're 21 years old, and you have the green dot on your helmet. Do you have any idea what that means? And for people who don't really have any idea what it means is that the Bucs have chosen, Todd Bowles, Bruce Arians, have chosen a 21-year-old player to be the guy who they call signals into, who's going to run the defense, you know, for them on the field at age 21. And so to see him now, as young as he is, be as dominant as he is, be the tackling machine that he is in the biggest games of his life is really impressive.
And one of the things that I've talked to other people about who were in a position to evaluate Devin White entering the draft, there was a strong belief that this is one of those rare guys who always is around the football. That Troy Polamalu, Ed Reed, Minka Fitzpatrick to a certain extent, Tyrann Mathieu, just the instincts that always seem to put him in the right place at the right time to make the right play. And I've said before, Peter, that if the NFL had the equivalent of hockey's Conn Smythe Trophy, which goes to the best player of the entire playoffs, even though White missed the wild card game,
yes,
I think White's the guy. White's the guy.
I think I would vote for him.
It was a combination of Antoine Winfield and Devin White that turned the Saints game around and kept it from becoming a 10 or a 14-point deficit in the third quarter with the play that was made on Jared Cook and the fumble that was scooped up by White. But he's just one of those guys that always is around the ball, always has a feel for where the ball is going to be. We usually see those guys one level back. It's rare to see a guy with that kind of instinct in the middle linebacker spot. Usually it's just to tackle. For him, it's tackle and get to the ball when there's an opportunity to get the ball. He's great, and he's awesome, and I love what he said, and I'm sure the Chiefs have to do some soul-searching, Peter, over why they did what they did. And that's one of the questions that, I don't know, will Andy Reid ever really be in a position to address it? Will he want to address it? Will he hope enough time passes that it never comes up? Why in the world didn't you help your overmatched left tackle and right tackle, especially when you knew that Patrick Mahomes had a bad toe?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. You know, it was interesting. I was on a podcast last week with the Pro Football Focus guys, who are obviously the football nerdy guys, and you know they look at every player on every play, and so one of them, Eric Eager, asked me, well, what really surprised you out of this Super Bowl? What are maybe the 2 or 3 things that surprised me? And I said that Andy Reid had 30 minutes at halftime of this game, and he and Eric Bieniemy didn't figure out some way to make Patrick Mahomes a little bit better protected in the second half, because it was as bad in the second half. And they did nothing, that I saw anyway, consistently to help particularly Andrew Wiley, who was an absolute disaster on the right-hand side of the field. I mean, if you talk about most valuable players on the Chiefs after this game, I'm looking at Mitchell Schwartz, quite honestly, as being one of them, because him not being there, and obviously not being there for the end of the season too, really, really hurt Kansas City's offense. But I'm just surprised that, especially when you have an extra long halftime, and maybe there was some small thing they did technically that was different. They didn't do anything major. They didn't have a 6-man line. They didn't have a tight end next to Andrew Wiley all the time. And I just think that's a mistake.
And I wonder how aggressively they tried to pop through the I'm fine facade with Mahomes, because the toe was bothering him. And so if you trust when he says I'm fine, and they've been with him long enough to, not that he's played with a lot of injuries. Maybe next time around they'll know to be skeptical when he says I'm fine, because they continue to roll with this idea that Mahomes doesn't need the help because he can run around and he can make things happen. The second half, it's amazing what he did, especially given that injury. But Peter, I think that the fact that the Chiefs and everyone else have seen Mahomes work magic in so many other high-profile spots, in single elimination games over and over again, fall behind 10 points, no big deal, 24 points, no big deal. I almost think that one of the reasons he didn't change anything is they just thought Patrick's going to figure it out. He always does.
And, you know, look, that's worked a lot for them in the past. But, Mike, look, I'm not here. This is a full show one day. But I do think that we have to look at the Kansas City Chiefs right now with a little bit of a jaundiced eye. We just do. Because if you take out the last 10 minutes of the fourth quarter of Super Bowl 54, and you count, the other 110 minutes of the last 2 games, you know what you have? You have 16 offensive possessions and 1 touchdown. And again, I'm not saying that the Chiefs are not great. They're a great football team. But their performance in the last 2 Super Bowls gives me pause. And it gives me pause that, if I'm Andy Reid, I'll never forget when it was either Joe Banner or Howie Roseman, after Andy Reid left Philadelphia, after he got fired and he went to Kansas City, the question was, what do you learn most from Andy Reid? And his answer was, you take care of both lines. Take care of the offensive line and the defensive line. To me, their defensive line's in pretty good shape. Okay? They need to take care of their offensive line. And I would be very surprised if this offseason they don't go heavy on the tackle position, on the offensive line position as a whole.
And they need to be thinking about having the backups available too. What the Patriots always did with the money that Tom Brady left on the table, having veteran backups who are making good money so you don't have to rely upon some undrafted free agent or a sixth-round draft pick or somebody you picked up off the street and you just hope for the best. You know, you have faith, you have trust that your backups are going to be able to step in, step up, and get the job done. That's one of the reasons why the Patriots won so many, because when the inevitable injuries happened, they had backups who could come in whom they trusted.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.